Welcome to AI for Everyone, the podcast that demystifies artificial intelligence and makes it useful for teachers, students, employees, small business owners, and lifelong learners. I'm your host, Brett Hanson, a 25-year veteran teacher with more than 2 years of experience exploring, implementing, and teaching AI to people of all ages. As a Google and ISTE certified educator, I'm here to help you navigate this quickly changing world with confidence, curiosity, and a focus on ethical, practical use. Now, most weeks, we'll start with a real-world story, introduce a free or low-cost AI tool, teach a future-ready skill, and finish with either timely AI news, an interview, or a short history spotlight. Once a month, we'll do the monthly report that gives us an opportunity to just talk about what's going on with AI in society and the big issues that are coming up that might not fit into a regular episode. So, whether you're new to AI or ready to level up, you're in the right place. Let's get started. So, this is our first monthly report where we're going to talk about what's going on in AI in our sort of everyday lives. And we will end up talking a little bit about specific tools and things, but focusing on what's going on big picture. And I wanted to get away from my stories for a little while, so I did a little research and found a report from PayPal that focused on how small businesses are adopting AI right now. And a lot of the anecdotes were very similar, but one woman's story, her name was Jody, she runs an HR consulting and recruiting firm, kind of stood out because she mentioned a specific everyday task that required some of her own personal touches, but they take a long time and she really wants to do them, but she needs to make sure she doesn't spend too long on it. So she said, quote, "I used AI this afternoon to respond to a letter, but added my own personal touches. It took me 5 minutes versus when it might have taken me 20 minutes before." So this is a little thing, but she really does want her letters to be from her. She wants them to be original and unique, but it still takes a lot of time. So she was able to take a 20-minute task and turn it into a 5-minute task while still maintaining her personality. So it's not super flashy. It's not about futuristic robots or anything like that, but it is about basically saving 15 minutes on a single routine task while using AI and maintaining her own voice, her own sort of style. So when people are running businesses, those little 15-minute chunks add up really fast. And if you're not an independent worker, you can use that time saved to do the things that you really like a little bit more. The key is that you have some freedom and that you can use AI to help you decide what you're going to work on. And this is one of the realities of AI's impact in our lives right now. It's not always about the big grand things that make the news. Big sweeping changes like DALL-E images or Veo photos or VO3. But more often it's about the quiet productivity revolution, our ability to get things done quicker. And it's happening basically one task at a time. So the AI didn't replace her professional judgment. It didn't completely change the way she did her business. It didn't take over. She still added her own personal touches, but it gave her a solid draft to start from and allowed her to get done quicker. So it's a really good example of using AI as a tool to augment her own skills. And I have found that Google's Gemini helps me do this more than any other tool. I am a Google Workspace user, but it's also their new Gemini 2.5 has really started to weave together the different products. So this became really obvious after Google announced their new tools and their connections at their I/O conference at the end of May. So this next generation of AI models includes Veo 3 for video and audio generation. And for me as a teacher, Veo 3, or Veo 3, I'm not exactly sure how it's pronounced, will allow me to create little quick videos that might show my students something that I can't necessarily communicate with text. Also to keep them intrigued. As a small business person, this is going to allow me to create little clips that I can use in my social media and create more connections. but it also allows me to make quick, relevant audio generation. And they've deepened Gemini's integration into the tools that we use every day. So now we can use Gemini to summarize and answer questions about videos that we've stored in our Google Drive. Yesterday, I used the new Gemini that's linked together with all of my other Gemini tools or Google tools to find an email that I was sure I had lost. I needed an image that was attached to an email. So these kinds of tools are exactly what Gemini is designed for. And so many of you may have already been using them without even noticing it. You may have noticed in your Google account that you can access the basic Gemini model in the upper right. And if, like me, you pay the $19.99 for the Pro version, the benefits are expansive. It's really wonderful. I'll have a full episode later about the things you can do for $19.99 a month with the Gemini model. And I'll also have an episode that focuses on ChatGPT and then one that focuses on Microsoft's Copilot. But for now, we're just talking about how we connect these things together. These tools are going beyond, fancy search engines. They are reasoning engines that create efficiency in new, unique ways. Now, I have before this summer, never been able to code. I've never been a coder. I recently decided to teach a computer class to some younger students. We're talking like elementary age. And I've enjoyed doing Python, and then the Scratch, of course, is easy. But with this new Gemini connection and these new interconnected tools, I have been using code that AI creates to make infographics and interactive tools. It's really quite amazing. So you can also just use it in your Gmail or Docs to organize information. You can ask it to take a long email thread and to summarize the main points and tell it to let you know which email certain information was in. You can use it to plan and organize. For example, I've recently made a daily and weekly plan for my social media work. I am not good with social media. I don't really like it, never have. But in order for this whole project to really do well, I need it. So I asked Gemini to create a plan with an infographic according to my requirements. It did it, and then I could just tell it to assign those things to my calendar, go to the calendar, and then just change each one to repeat each week. It was amazingly quick, and now I'll get reminders to make sure that I check my LinkedIn or whatever I'm working on. So the planning and organizing is amazing. And then the biggest thing is learning new things, using these tools to learn new skills, tactics, procedures, and doing things that you just didn't even think were possible. Like I didn't know it was possible for Gemini to actually schedule things on my calendar without me having to create an elaborate tool or to pay for one. So the key to all this, of course, is to think of any of these tools as your assistant. You're in the driver's seat, you are in charge, you are in control, and you provide the context and the direction. And then it does the heavy lifting of the work, and then you verify and you check and make sure. And along the process, your technology skills will grow enormously. So get started small and then just keep working. So the skill that we want to talk about before we kind of talk about the news has to do with evaluating AI output. Now, this is becoming more important than ever. Lately in the podcasts I listen to, I've been hearing more and more about jobs where people are getting positions where they're basically like AI supervisors, and they are making sure that the work meets the expectations, which as AI gets better and better and better, it usually does. Occasionally there are mistakes, but you have to make sure that you evaluate the output. Remember that in the swimmer acronym, the R, the last letter, is the most important to review the results. And so some people are creating these enormous plans and these wonderful research projects, but then you have to go through and ensure that it meets your expectations and your standards. And you don't have to do that with every single thing you do with AI, but the big important stuff you do. So it's really a non-negotiable unless you want to accidentally share inferior work. And this is that whole balance thing. AI tools, including Gemini, can still hallucinate, but more often what they do is they make mistakes because they didn't know exactly what you wanted, or they went in the wrong direction. Often with beginners, I find that there hasn't been clear communication to the AI what one wants. So I watch carefully, and then I will just tell it, as you can. No, I don't want global statistics. I only want statistics in the United States. And then I have to just make sure that I get better and better at priming that. And then often I will tell it, do not fictionalize anything. Don't create a hypothetical person as an example. I don't want any fictionalized elements to this. So we always want to make sure that we do 4 or 5 things when we're verifying or evaluating the output. We want to vet the facts. We want to check and make sure. AI now will provide the links to the sources, and you can guide it towards a certain level of source. You might tell it that you only want it to use higher level academic sources for something, but you still have to go look at those statistics, and you can ask AI to tell you which source this came from, or which part of or section of this source did it come from, which paragraph, and it will give you exactly the location, which is much faster if you're not going to end up reading all those documents. Sometimes you might create a report and the AI will use 20, 25 documents or sources, and you don't need to read all of them. You're going to read the most important ones, and you're going to identify the sources in there. So finding that balance is up to you, but you want to vet the facts, and especially the most important ones. Now you want to check for bias, but always remember that all sources have bias. And then you want to look for the kind of social bias that we're all trying to minimize. Just the Western male perspective, or just the US perspective, or just the wealthy American or wealthy Westerner perspective. So you might have to prime the prompt to take care of that as well. And then you always want to refine the prompt or prime the prompt and make sure that it is your own. If you're going to use this information, you want to tell the AI what you want it to sound like, and the standards, the personal touches. Now, in AI terminology, what a lot of people are referring to is they're referring to style as, or voice as, the elements that you create so it sounds like you, but your overall understanding of the quality and seeing the vision as a whole is called taste. It's kind of the equivalent of the aesthetic when you talk about the arts. But as you get better, you'll get a more refined taste for the AI that you're using and the purpose. And that's important. And then finally, we want to make sure that we always question the sources. We have to check on these things. And this is the same with any research. AI just makes it faster, easier, and more expansive. So this is one of those skills that will set you apart. You make sure you practice it, and that will lead you into the more fortunate situation in our next topic, which is AI's real-time impact on jobs in the economy. So this is the main topic for this episode, the main thing that's going on, the main thing that people are worried about, how AI is changing the economy and the job market right now in the middle of 2025. So let's start with some numbers, some statistics to ground this discussion. In U.S. manufacturing, a survey by the National Association of Manufacturers found that 72% of companies reported reduced costs and improved efficiency after deploying AI. More than half said it gave them better operational visibility. In healthcare, the adoption of AI is surging perhaps faster than many other fields. As of 2024, nearly 2/3 of physicians reported using some form of AI in their practice, a huge jump from the 38% in the beginning of 2024. And across healthcare organizations, about 79% have adopted AI technology in some capacity. We know that healthcare is going to be one of the most affected industries because of all the potential with protein folding and processing huge amounts of data. The World Economic Forum identifies AI and machine learning specialists as among the fastest growing roles worldwide. We get so caught up with talking about the United States, which is understandable, that we forget that there are all these other countries that are in their own AI arms races. And they are pushing hard to develop the people who can create more and better AI. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics projects that demand for software developers will grow by almost 20% by 2033, even with AI that can write code. And that's one of the things that's really amazing. Agentic AI is able to write extremely good code without specific instructions. At this point, it's still being controlled by humans, which is a good thing, but it's just a matter of time before some companies will become even more efficient. So as everything becomes more digital, the need to protect it grows, the need to expand grows, and that leads us to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity analysts now rank among the top 5 fastest growing professions. So this data leads us to believe that there is a huge impact already and that it's going to get bigger and bigger. Employers expect that skills in AI and big data will grow in importance every year, more rapidly than any other skills in the next 5 years. That means that we should definitely be educating ourselves and our students on these skills and how to get better at them and how to be both digitally and artificially intelligently literate. So one forecast predicts that nearly 40% of core jobs will change by 2030, that AI will affect 40% of core jobs. And that really tells the story about what we need to do. So we can no longer talk about AI will affect jobs. It has already happened. It's happening now, and it will continue to happen. And there are going to be people who lose out more than others. If we're talking globally, some sources are talking about 300 million full-time jobs being either eliminated or downsized. Goldman Sachs reported that they think they're going to get near those numbers globally. There are other people who think it's going to happen at a smaller scale, but it's definitely going to happen. So it's kind of a two-sided story or a situation where, just like technology in the past, AI is really pushing and driving the efficiency components of productivity, and it's creating a lot of avenues for wealth accumulation. But it's also eliminating many of the jobs that people are currently in, and they're going to have to adapt, or it will be tough. So this fear of mass unemployment isn't new. It's been consistent, but it seems from the data that it's going to get more intense. It's going to become more specific. The clear shift seems to be happening in routine administrative tasks. The artificial intelligence show hosts believe that it's going to happen first, or the people that are maybe the most vulnerable are the middle management, middle level people. They think that those employees aren't going to have what they call the taste of a good project that results from AI, and they're going to struggle more. They haven't had the time to really understand the difference between excellent and good, and they're kind of expensive to pay. I think that one of the biggest problems is certainly going to be a reduction in entry-level jobs because they're so easy to not hire for, as opposed to getting rid of people. He's more experienced than I am, but that's my prediction. I think there are going to be a lot fewer entry-level jobs, and so it's going to be harder for people that are trying to find their footing in their industry. So the good news is that AI is creating a lot of jobs as well. The World Economic Forum projects that AI could create as many as 97 million new jobs in 2025. This is global, but it's going to get rid of or displace about 85 million from their perspective or in their report. So there will be more jobs, but this is the really key point here for people who can use AI. Now, there are going to be some industries that for quite a long time are pretty safe. The trades are going to be safe for a long time. I think jobs like teachers are going to be safe, police officers, those service jobs. But the stuff that you can do with a computer or technology, those are at risk. The prompt engineer jobs were rising, but I think what's going to happen pretty soon is that so many people are going to get better at prompting, like a Google search in the past, that there will be those positions, but it's going to become more something like an AI system operator. And so that means that people are going to have to improve their AI skills. So it's kind of like data analyst mixed with project managers who can interpret AI outputs. So the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics continues to forecast growth in these tech fields, and they note that AI's productivity boost can spur new demand for workers to build and maintain these systems. Once again, that's a high-level thinking, and you really gotta work on those skills regularly. So this leads to the second major impact in regards to the economy, and that is the widening skills and wealth gap. If we look at the data, we can see clearly that rich people are getting richer and poor people are getting poorer. And the middle class is getting stretched, mostly down into the lower middle class range. Currently, I think it's 1% of the population controls about 30% of U.S. wealth, and 50% of the population, the bottom 50%, has control over about 2.5% of wealth. That middle range is getting tighter and tighter with all the things that are going on with inflation and so on. But this wealth gap is expanding and growing, and so therefore, clearly, the benefits of AI are not going to be distributed evenly. Workers who have up-to-date digital and critical thinking skills have a much better chance of thriving in this shift. They can leverage AI to become more productive, and then theoretically they can request more or demand more with wages, because companies are theoretically and businesses are going to be willing to pay more if you can increase your income per employee. I don't remember the exact acronym in the business world, but they closely measure the amount of profit per employee, and everybody thinks that number is going to go up. And if it doesn't go up, you're doing something wrong with your business. So easily automated roles without a path for retraining are going to get a lot of wage pressure, and those people are going to be in a difficult spot. So this creates an even bigger risk of that economic spreading or polarization. Wealth is already condensed or concentrated in a small group of people, but now it is incredibly controlled by people who control AI. I was listening to a podcast episode yesterday, and they were talking about how clearly wealthy people know that the key to the future is to either own or control AI, or to be in some way connected to the powerful people and the power of AI. They called it an AI arms race, that it's going to get more and more intense, and that is probably going to bring up inflation, which will make it harder for other people to borrow money, and it'll create more problems for people who don't have any of that influence or wealth, especially for developing nations. So most of what I've been talking about, of course, is focused on the United States, but AI is going to make quite a few things more difficult for people around the world who don't know how to use AI. Just like the internet gave a lot of opportunities to people who were able to use it around the world, AI will do the same thing if people have the skills. But clearly, the the wealth gap is widening. So what does this mean for us, for people who are working right now, for students in school? Once again, it comes back to becoming a lifelong learner. It's no longer something that we should do only for our role as a citizen, which is very important, or our own personal development as a human being. It is becoming an imperative because jobs are going to change fast, and people who don't have these skills that the economy are identifying as essential are going to struggle. So the skills that are most valuable now, according to the experts, are technical skills like digital literacy, data analysis, AI literacy, and AI skills, intermingled with the most important human skills: creativity, critical thinking, communication. I like to add citizenship. I think that's really important. And, an emotional intelligence, things that would allow one to become one of those AI system operators, or someone who can manage the AI and determine, the good results or effective results from bad results. But also people who can communicate and lead teams. Leadership skills are going to become more and more important. And, we really need to work on these. As a public school teacher, I know intimately the importance of shifting our education priorities. And I hope we'll do that in schools over the next few years. Hopefully now, a lot of schools are already doing it, but for everyone, these are the things we need to do. We need to be able to look at people and have difficult conversations, but we also need to make ethical decisions. So the future of work really belongs to people who can collaborate with both intelligent machines and human beings at the same time. So, the challenge for our society right now in the summer of 2025 is to take advantage of these opportunities, to try to make sure that everyone has these opportunities, and to develop them as soon as possible and as consistently as possible. So my personal view about, training in this way is that what we need to strive for is that ability to develop what they call the taste of AI systems, or as my wife would say, an aesthetic, an understanding of how it fits together and what's good and bad in general, and the interconnectedness of these tools. And that comes with consistent use of a set of tools, a set of interacting AI elements mixed with all the other things that are that we're using in our everyday life. So we'll have more about that later. For now, what we really want to focus on is the fact that the world is changing dramatically. The economy is going to is going to reward people who have the skills necessary, the people who can collaborate with both intelligent machines and human beings, and that's where we ought to go. So one of the things that I am starting to create now is a workshop here in my community in Sturgeon Bay in Northeast Wisconsin to help people do that live. I think that for a lot of people, it's better to meet in a workshop or group format. And so stay tuned for more information on the AI for Everyone workshop. I will share that as soon as I work out the details. Thanks for spending time with me today on AI for Everyone. I hope this episode gave you something useful to think about or something new to try. If you enjoyed it, please tell your friends and peers and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts so you'll never miss an episode. Please also visit Hanson Education Services so that you can follow us on X, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And then sign up for the newsletter. I promise the emails will be very short with links to things you might be interested in. And if you're looking for any AI mentoring, instruction, or one-on-one tutoring, please go to Hanson Education Services and send me an email. I'd love to schedule a discovery meeting to see if I can help you or your organization. Remember, the most important skill you can develop is to keep learning how to learn. See you next week.